Greetings and the best of health, as well as the best of salutations. There will be prayer, power, peace, patience, and prosperity. I'm going to share something from 3 books, an excerpt from them, and then just going to let it be. I'm going to share from one book called The Black Man's North in East Africa by Yosef Ben Yakinen and George Simmons. And we know biologically that black and white is something that is conceptual. But this is where I am at this particular time. It says things done by Africa before Europe. And you know the word Europe comes from the word Europia, which is a Phoenician prince or prince. It's Phoenician. Put it that way. Yes. It says in this article, the author will very briefly show some of the many things the continent of Africa has given to the world before the coming of Europe into history. It is taken from the writer's much more extensive work, The African's Influence of European Sphere of History. Presently being edited for publication, the larger work shows the reasons why true history has been suppressed and kept from the peoples of the world. Because of the old myths of teaching that Africa has no history, this article is written from a point that perspective. The reader in this context can then see many reasons for the terrible fear of African history being taught truthfully in a white European-oriented society or setting. One needs to remember, especially if one happens to be living in the United States of America, that it was and still is important to make the black man feel and see himself as inferior to those whites who dominate him. In the United States of America, there's a very large population of black people, way in excess of what one can find anywhere in all of Europe. That means that no single European country has anything nearly close to the United States of America black population living within its boundaries. However, although the Europeans were in many instances still remain conquerors and colonizers of the black man, their internal domestic relationship with him is slightly different. That is, in the United States of America. In order to control the numerous former chattel slaves, it was, from a white European perspective, necessary to keep the black man totally ignorant of his motherland, Africa, and made him psychologically ashamed of himself, the color of his skin. Such controls make blacks think that they ought to be shameful and thankful to the whites for discovering. Love to use whenever they first find out that something or someone or someone place existed of which they knew nothing, and the backward Africa, and taking them in stolen lands, in which is commonly referred to in history as other disciplines as the New World, the Americas, both North and South, and the Caribbean islands. This is almost like a backlash. Something that has came, or something that has came to haunt America. So what has came to haunt America? Someone works hard to make another person psychologically ashamed of him or herself. What is going on in what we call American health, in the mental health field? It's a mental health problem. The people are dealing with a mental health crisis. And they could feel shame because of the stigma that's applied to that illness. But this was put out to make a group of people feel psychologically inferior and make them feel ashamed of themselves. So now the population, the mixed population, due to mental health or mental illness, mental health. Not trying to be a doctor, but I just know that is that is something that is going on in the culture and society. Maybe it's something that should be dealt or addressed, and feeling ashamed, it should have some remorse to it, maybe. But be careful what you put out there. You may not like how it comes back. Let's look at another book that I'm going to read. It is the commentary on the selected verses of the Holy Quran, documented from the teachings of Imam Mufti Muhammad. It says each person has a psyche and a psychology. Nafs is from the same word you get the word psyche and psychology. It said earlier that nafs, I may be pronouncing wrong, soul, and we know in ancient Kemet, it's a term for that, refers to the non-physical person. He made them from one soul. Means person, but in this respect, it's never thought of a physical or material person, not a flesh. The flesh body is called something different. In English, we say person, body, etc. We have different terms. We say body, and you think of material body. When you say person, you think of a particular person by name. When you speak of persons as persons, you think of them with some knowledge of them as a person. If you have knowledge of them as a person, your knowledge of them as a person is more important than your knowledge of them as flesh. I can see a person one time and see what you have been seeing for 50 years, and I do not need to see it anymore. I see his flesh for just a couple of minutes. It was enough. I do not have to see his flesh for 50 years like you did, but you have seen what I have seen, and if I am just meeting that person physically, you have seen the person inside of the flesh, and that is what this is talking about. Each person has a psyche and a psychology. It goes on. As I said earlier, the word nafs or nafs in Quran in Arabic language is more closely related to meaning the psyche of the human person that it is to anything else. And you know from the psyche you get psychology. You know, ology is the study of. And psychology does not always refer to the study of the mind. It just about countered that. Each one of us have our personal psychology. For each person there is a psychology, not a psyche. Psychology means the way you are most likely to respond and behave spiritually. This is why I said you are a spiritual body. So then a material body. In the world we study it and call it psychology. In religion we call it spiritual sciences. The spiritual science of the human nature and behavior is from Nasfasim. He made two from one soul. Or Wahada. We have to get away from thinking of Adam and Eve in a material sense. Flesh. A lot of the students of religion have come up with these wrong ideas. I'm going to read from another book, Light from Ancient Africa, by Naim Akbar. Talks about the psychology of ancient Kemet. The wisdom of ancient Kemet is like a vast tapestry of amazing complexity with colors and dimensionality, covering the full range of man's collective potential. Each thread of the tapestry has been carefully woven such that every thread is defined by every other. It remains intact only because every thread is present. No thread can be unraveled without destroying the tapestry. Such is the task facing anyone who dares to explore any thread of the knowledge of ancient Kemet. The bountiful preservation and excavation supply the Egyptologists with abundant material for the study of life, beliefs, theology of ancient Kemet. An encyclopedic volume of the work available to researchers from the competent of the Kemetic existence, or the component of the Kemetic existence. And yet the true science of ancient Kemet still remains essentially unknown. Because of the complexity of the Kemet worldview, it is very difficult to concentrate exclusively on certain components of the sophisticated system of thought. In the Kemetic realm, one cannot make distinction between psychology, physics, chemistry, mathematics, art, religion, and philosophy. Such divisions are meaningless in the Kemetic conception of the universe, where everything was related to everything else. Such holistic understanding is completely counter to the analytical fragmentation which characterized the Western approach to understanding. There is no such distinction as sacred versus secular. There is no such thing as the life of this world and the life of the other world. No such thing as the religious versus political. Everything is tied intimately and inextricably together. To enter a fragmented discussion such as intensifying of a category of a study that is psychology is the fundamental discredit of the Kemetic intelligence. This modern artificial approach to comprehensive plays and contemporary understanding when it comes to the reality of Kemet. Spherical. The forces arrange a Kemetic thought into the square of the linear analysis of the West, even though psychology is a segregated study. Entity does not exist in the studies of the ancient Kemetic realm. It is important to remember in the views of man as a fundamental metaphor for all higher truth, through which all information and intelligence in the universe can pass. Remember, at one time we used to have antennas on TV. Okay. The understanding of man was viewed as a paramount in the science of ancient Kemet. The ingenious study of religion, science, mathematics, psychology, and government, and the study of man and its potential is significant to note. The Western scientists write off subjects such as astrology, alchemy, and numerology as being superstition. The scientists of ancient Kemet understood that you could not talk about mathematics without talking about the human being. Ancient Kemet numerology talks about the relationship between symbolic quantification and the human expression. This African civilization study of alchemy expresses the connection between the transformation of materials into nature with the transformative potential in the human psyche. So alchemy is actually metachemistry, not superstitious chemistry. It is not less than, but greater than. Of course, when the materialistic Europeans sought to apply such holistic principles of meta-science that wanted only to make material gold out of material lead, rather than gold character from raw lead of undeveloped human expression. Such reductionism distorts the true essence of being. Ancient Kemet science was both actual and metaphorical, empirical and invisible. The African study of the stars, astrology, examines the relationship between human process and celestial process, recognizing the connection between two and their inseparability. They realize human development aligns itself and is related to the celestial order and process. Therefore, the evolution of the mind is akin to the evolution of the heavens. The movement, timing, the consistency of nature is integral understanding to the development of the mind. So alchemy, astrology, numerology must all be rediscovered in their original origin. Man is a microcosm, and the understanding man, one understands the macrocosm that is all of nature, the universe. Consciousness or awareness is the ultimate goal and Kemetic concept of the mind. The dictum, man know thyself, is the fundamental principles of psychology of Kemet. George Jim James, 1976, observed the doctrine of self-knowledge for centuries, attributed to the Greek Socrates. It is definitely known to have originated from the Egyptian temples. On the outside of such temples, the words "man know thyself" were written and still can be seen today. The word that I was trying to find in this, in which I was reading, oh boy, was psyche. That's the word that I was trying to find. The characteristics of Western psychology. If we take the meaning of the word psychology, which the West has distorted and reduced to the scientific study of human behavior, we find the first flaw of Western science. The word psyche was derived from the Greek language by way of African origin. The word is associated with the goddess Psyche, and to the Greeks meant the soul. According to Massey, 1974, in the Book of the Beginnings, the word psyche is actually derived from the Egyptian language. Is that the key is the soul of the Su, is she, Su, it makes sense. Su-ki, or it is unless the K is silent. Su-hi. Embodies the nature and the meaning of the Greek goddess Psyche. The soul, the psyche, without the particle P. The Egyptian word Saku means the understanding, the illuminator, the eye of the soul of the being, that which inspires. From this linguistic analysis, we find not only in the study of the human mind offered to us by the Greeks by way of the motherland, but the terminology as well. The distortion. To make one psychologically feel ashamed of him or herself affects one's mentally. It could bother an individual morally. Don't feel ashamed. We know in this society in which we live, where some may have more than others, and at times we can feel less than, because we could be measuring or comparing ourselves to others. And we know in the society in which we live too as well, where it's that those who are famous, people will follow them because of their fame. People like to be entertained, more so possibly because that is the popular thing to do. And maybe people are avoiding getting to know themselves. Maybe it is true, man, when it comes to being successful, that those who are successful, it's not about the fame, about having balance. They could be blessed materially, but they still have the balance, morally maybe, I'm just trying to put something in there. But the backlash and that which is haunting is culture or society in which we live is the when you go out of your way to make another person feel ashamed because of their color or because of their skin, make them feel inferior. In all actuality, you're running from your own self. And you could be the one that is that's inferior. And maybe those who have some understanding of what I've just shared, if not, maybe not. But when you become a pawn to someone else, and everything that you do, you're receiving, doing things on credit. Therefore, you become indebted to the one that is giving you something on credit. And that's something that you earn. Before there is some form of enslavement or colonization, you have to be aware of someone making you or using you as a pawn. Until next time. Just doing my best to promote the value of self-worth, to cultivate the potential of knowledge that is in us all, and includes me as well in all that I say, and to communicate with precision, clear image to the world through 5.5 channels: understanding, tolerance, temperance/temperament, confidence, and respect, to restore the integrity and the dignity of social credibility, to readdress the integrity and dignity of readdressing social diversity, and to revise the integrity and dignity of being socially coherent, and to replenish the integrity and dignity by replenishing the social continuity of our confidence and cooperating with one another, and finally reclaiming the integrity and dignity of social solidarity. Yes. And if I shared anything that was inaccurate, yes. Until next time, talk to you.